Bonjour for the last time, NFL fans. It is Kevin Phillip Fox broadcasting to you live from Francais. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not alone. It is a Friday, almost midnight for me, or almost 11 p.m. I believe it's Saturday for Adrian, or yeah, it's Saturday morning for Adrian. My boy Adrian Revito from Down Under. Adrian, how the hell are you?
I was waiting for the music. What up,
I know,
man?
me too.
It's a good evening to you. It's a good morning to me. It's a good afternoon to our producer Anthony Weiner. We're coming to you all over the place.
It's actually kind of absurd. We've been doing this for the last 3 weeks. It's almost over. Next time you see me, I will be in my purpley lit studio,
We're
doing
missing
what
it.
I always do, man. And I'm looking forward to it. But you guys have been really great about it. And yeah, I've been just having the time of my life doing this stuff with you guys. So without further ado, Mr. Adrian Revito, we do have Armand in the chat. Let me shout out Armand, say what up to the homie.
What up, man?
And without further ado, let's dive into our legit headlines, Adrian Revito. And we're starting off pretty hot. KJ Osborn entering Vikings training camp as wide receiver 2. ESPN's Kevin Seifert writes that it could be difficult for first-round rookie Jordan Addison to challenge Osborn for playing time in 2 receiver sets. Why might this be? Addison was held out of spring workouts after suffering an unspecified injury during rookie minicamp in May. Osborn, meanwhile, was named an offseason standout by head coach Kevin O'Connell. In 2022, Osborn caught 60 of 90 targets for 650 yards and 5 touchdowns. He flashed real upside in week 4 against the Colts, catching 10 passes for 157 yards and a touchdown. Mr. Adrian Revito, what are your first thoughts on this headline?
This headline surprised me. I'll be honest with you because I'm quite high on Addison. I think he came into probably the best situation for a receiver. I understand he's got Justin Jefferson in front of him, but he can slot into that wide receiver too, whereas every receiver other than him was falling to a 3 or 4 or beyond. So
Yeah.
look, Osborne's okay. He's definitely like a nice 2 or 3. If you look at that, you said 60 of 90 catches, 66% catch rate. Addison in his college career, and I wrote a piece on him recently, so I know a few things off the top of my head that he had contested catch rates of about 55% through his college career. He really smashed it in 21. He dropped off a little bit when he transferred to USC, but I'm quite high on him.
Yeah.
Particularly in a fantasy. If you're looking at fantasy rookies, and that's it's relevant to today's show. But yeah, I mean, I'm high on him. I'd be surprised if Osborn holds on to that 2 slot for very long. He did have 2 100+ yard games last year, but he also had about 10 games with less than 25 yards. So
Yeah.
I understand the situation he's in, but I also feel like he's probably primed to get bumped to 3 pretty soon.
Yeah, not only bringing the hard-hitting analysis, but bringing the stats to back it up. Adrian Revito.
We got Jimmy here. I got to do it.
You are NFL Stats Australia, baby. You really are.
Branching out.
I asked this before my thoughts. Does this give you concern for Addison in fantasy, given how bullish you seem to be on Addison? Does this worry you at all?
I think it takes away from where he'll be at the start, because if this is, these kind of rumors, sometimes they play out, sometimes they don't. But, as an offseason standout, and injuries particularly, an early injury isn't great. It might put his upside particularly, so let's say the first 5 to 10 games down. But I kind of suspect that Osborn will be knocked back by midseason.
Yeah.
So some concern to answer your question.
It's tough because here's my thoughts. I think KJ Osborn is a solid NFL receiver. I didn't love him. I don't love him in the 2 role. I just don't think his ceiling is high enough. I don't think he does enough. 60 of 90 is not a great catch percentage. That's kind of what 66.7%. That's kind of in the middle of the pack ish. It's not like Gabe Davis bad, but it's Justin Jefferson's catch percentages off the charts. I think you brought up Addison's contested catch, and contested catch sort of implies 50-50 ball, right?
Yeah.
So for a 55%, catch percentage on a 50-50 ball, that's pretty solid.
Above the average, yeah.
Right. And Addison, his opportunity is going to be fantastic, being the wide receiver 2 theoretically opposite Jefferson, who should be drawing a lot of double coverage. So this kind of, to me, it's not like a bucket of cold water, but it's like a water gun of cold water. Like it's not
Yeah.
nothing. It's definitely affecting the flame a little bit, but it's not enough to put the flame out, in my
Yeah.
opinion. My love for Jordan Addison burns bright. So it seems you feel the same way.
Yeah, yeah, it is very much it's a pipette of water. You just drip it over the top and like hope to extinguish. But I
It's like a squirt bottle. It's like a,
yeah,
it
yeah.
comes out with the mist. It's
Sure,
it's
it'll scare your cat, but it's not gonna burn out.
it,
Like, it's not gonna get rid
literally
of the
no,
flame. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm glad we're on the same page there because I don't want this to be anti Osborn. I think Osborn is a sleeper in that three
Mm,
role because the Vikings passing attack, especially now that Dalvin Cook is gone, everybody's assuming that Alexander Madison is just going to step into Cook's workload and a percentage of his production, but that's a huge assumption.
correct.
We've seen a very small sample size, a good sample size, but a small sample size. So
And the thing is, look, the good thing for the Vikings is that they don't need another. Like they've got Jefferson is such a star, number one wide receiver that anyone you put there, anyone you put in the 2 and 3 is going to take a hit because I haven't got the exact numbers off the top of my head, but his targets last year were just off the charts, insane.
yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
and I mean he had what 1,800 yards, like more than 1,800 yards.
yeah. So
Yeah,
actually,
dude.
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, that's not a
Hold on.
bad call. And while you're pulling that up, I'll just say like, I like TJ Hawkinson. I think the Vikings passing attack is a buy in fantasy. This is a fantasy episode. This is a pretty big fantasy implication headline. So I don't feel bad for diving into the fantasy side of this.
Not
Kirk,
at all.
great late round quarterback value. Uh, Addison, probably one of the buzziest of the rookie picks. Jefferson's, I'll get into his ADP later, but as you can assume, it's off the charts. It's astronomical.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. Have I stalled long enough, Mr. Revito?
Perfect amount
Let's
of
go.
pandering. 184 targets for 128 receptions. 184 targets is just a huge amount for any
That's
receiver.
absurd.
Yeah.
That's
So
absurd.
you don't need a star in the 2 slot. You don't need it you don't need to round out your room when you've got someone who draws double coverage and still puts up 1,800 yards. Still likely to,
That
everyone's talking about 2K.
low for
Sorry,
him.
2K.
No,
Sorry.
128.
As in his catch rate. I think we've lost you. Or have you lost me? Anth, if you can hear me, can you give me a little sound drop?
Okay, I'm back, baby.
There we go.
Did-
He's back.
Y'all might have lost me. I think that time. I think y'all lost me. I've been
You know
saying I'm
how it
on Europe's
feels.
Wi-Fi. Am I right, Adrian? We had a laugh on the on the pre-show about my confusion of geography. We're not gonna call me out on the show. Am I back,
I would never.
Adrian?
You're back. Yeah, you're back. No, we've lost you again. You seem paused. So while you're freezing, let me cover this for a second. So I think what Ken was talking about his catch rate, 128 against 184, seems low. And oh, there you are. You look like you're moving. I was
I'm back.
pandering
I'm
for a
back. I
second.
was just listening. Now you were making my point
Yeah.
for me, so I was just
Yeah.
listening.
So just pandering that 128, 184 does seem low, but the thing is Justin Jefferson, two things. He's always double covered, like
That's
always double
true.
coverage. So he's
Yeah.
always going to have a lower catch rate. And the second thing he still puts the yards up after the catch every time. So that's
Yeah.
how he gets those 1,800 yards.
Yeah, and it's 70%. I just did the math, and I was kind of dogging Osborne for 66%. And I did kind of maybe potentially celebrate Jefferson's catch percentage. That's like not as good as I thought it would be, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess
The
maybe
thing
that's
is,
a sneaky
he
metric.
ranked the number one in yards after catch last year. So he might not grab them all because he's double covered, but he always puts up yards after.
And he's got Kirk throwing him. Kirk's not a world beater. He's pretty accurate, but he's not a top 5 QB. I think we've teased out the KJ Osborne wide receiver 2 talk enough to move
Totally.
on to our next legit headline. We have decisions on Higgins, Mixon, following the Joe Burrow extension. This insight comes from the Athletics' Paul Daner Jr., who calls Burrow's extension the first domino. Duh. Daner thinks this deal will likely get done around the start of training camp. As far as T. Higgins goes, Very likely the team's second priority would be a long-term extension for T. Higgins. There's mutual interest in finalizing a deal before the season. Danner said there is no way the Bengals will keep Mixon at his current $10.1 million salary. The soon-to-be 27-year-old will be released if he doesn't take a pay cut. Adrian, am I in a time machine? Is this 3 weeks ago? Is this 2 months ago? Is this the end of the season? This Joe Mixon talk?
This is July, baby.
Yeah,
This
this
is
is July.
this is truly the dog days of the NFL world. But
The dog
you know
days.
what? I do have some thoughts on this, a little more specific because we've talked about Mixon and he has to take a pay cut. There's no ifs or
Yeah.
buts.
Yeah.
But he's currently on an average salary ranked fifth in the NFL, and Mixon does not deserve that. I'm just going to say
No.
it. So, a couple names below him: Eckler,
Yeah.
Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony
Yeah.
Pollard, Jonathan Taylor, Alexander Madison. Well, that one's a buy.
Yeah.
But he's got names below him that are producing more than him. They don't need a world beater in the backfield because of what they've got on offense. So, yeah, that seems like a no-brainer. Very much in agreement on the DAR. You have to get Joe Burrow sorted first. But then
Yeah.
T. Higgins, we've talked about him. He's a great, one of the best twos, I would say.
100%. Could be a one for sure
Yeah.
on a
Oh,
lot of teams.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He'd come to the Packers and be, one
Literally.
and two. Yeah.
And talk about contested catch. That dude can come down with a 50-50 ball, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
My thoughts on this, Adrian, are this might seem like bad form. And to be honest with you, if I'm the Bengals, I'm not really sure if I care. But am I crazy for thinking they should extend Chase before Higgins?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I think because look, obviously Higgins was drafted a year before, so I think they can wait another year for Chase, and I think they're going to negotiate his contract with Chase's in mind.
Yeah.
But I do hear look the reason Higgins because Higgins is a really good receiver, but the reason he's two is because he's overshadowed by Chase. So
Yeah. Right. And the thing is too, the conversation with so first of all, Higgins isn't a first round pick. So he doesn't come in with that guaranteed fifth year option. Jamar Chase is a first round pick. So he's also a year behind Higgins, I believe. So that gives you a little extra
correct.
wiggle room.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's it. Look, I mean, really, so he was drafted 21, which would mean if they picked up his option, which they absolutely are, they could theoretically have him through to what, 2026 without there's no way you're drinking water from that.
I told you I'm in France, bro. This is what we do. I have a wine glass with I don't drink. I'm drinking water from a wine glass from a jug. This is what we do here.
If you're watching,
Justin.
if you're listening to this on Spotify or anywhere, you're missing out. You need to be on the YouTube channel.
Come join for
Absolutely.
real in the future. It's so fun. What we need to light a fire in the chat. Armand, you need to say something
Get it going,
wild.
man. Get it going, man. So I think I hear that I think they've got more guarantees with Chase. I also think Chase knows what he's got there, what his chemistry with Joe Burrow. I don't think he wants to go anywhere. So
and Chase is, in my opinion, a top 5 receiver in the NFL. So he's kind of like the crown jewel of that offense. If you take Joe Burrow away, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Adrian. I just like I said, it's bad form because is this Higgins' contract year this upcoming season?
So he was drafted 2020. So they'd work out an extension.
I think this is his contract year.
Yeah, technically they could negotiate next off season, but I guess they just want to lock it down.
I think as they should, but I think I don't know, man. If you're gonna run out of money, I know this from Madden. If you're gonna run out of money, it's better to run out of money on the guys that you care about less.
Yeah,
that's just GMing 101. I respect it. At the end of the day, Burrow is the top priority, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Mixon should take a pay cut. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I think there's a case to be made that if you throw form out the window, you should extend Chase before you extend Higgins.
Yeah, and I mentioned this analogy I think a couple shows ago, like the whole window thing. That the window's open as long as Joe Burrow's there. Like their house is going to be very, very expensive. I actually think they're going to be starved a little bit after next year for money, and they're really going to be struggling. Armand jumping in the chat.
Let's go. And this is one, Armand, you, Anthony, when Thomas joins us inevitably, when Oscar joins us inevitably, when Jonathan joins us inevitably, when Jimmy joins us inevitably, drop your burning questions because Adrian and I are rapid fire. We are answering every question you have. I don't care.
All about it.
I don't care if I keep these French people up until no, I'm just joking. If you heard me tatarita, I'm sorry. Um, anyways, I'm scared. The French people, they've been beating me with baguettes. Um, 2-day-old baguettes are they're like weapons. We have one last legit headline before we get into our fantasy football burning questions. Mike Clay forecasts double-digit touchdowns for Chiefs running back Isiah Pacheco. Clay, a fantasy expert for ESPN, notes that Pacheco, who didn't take over as the starter until week 7, only scored 5 of the 22 touchdowns scored by Chiefs running backs last season. Here we go. We got a comment from Francis Miller. Francis, we're going to get to your question in the burning question segment. Thank you for your question. I cannot wait.
Stick around. That's coming up. That's coming up
Yes,
first.
sir. With Pacheco set for the lead role in 2023, Clay thinks that touchdowns will accumulate. Pacheco should also be healthier in year 2. He played through a broken hand and torn labrum as a rookie. Jerick McKinnon will continue to get passing down work, while Clyde Edwards-Helaire, an undrafted rookie, Deneric Prince, will compete in training camp for the number 3 role. Now, Adrian, talk about fantasy football burning questions. Isiah Pacheco is like one of the biggest wild cards in the NFL this season. Would you agree from a
Yeah.
fantasy perspective?
Oh, totally agree. I think it's hard. He came in from week 9, right? So if he'd come in at week 1 and the pace that he was holding, it's about a 1,200-yard season.
Yeah.
And that's in the Chiefs' offense is always going to be fire. It's always going to be through the air because of Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But you're 100% right that he's a wild card. He needs to get a little bit more involved in the passing game. Jared
Yes.
McKinnon's always going to be
Couldn't agree
involved
more.
in that. Yeah.
It almost kind of makes me feel like I think McKinnon is always a sneaky add late in fantasy. He's kind of a flyer this year,
Yeah.
but he's kind of a hamstring for Pacheco's true value.
He is, unless Pacheco gets involved in the game a little bit more, because look, Edwards-Helaire, and we all remember Edwards-Helaire and the hype that came with him.
Poor Edwards-Helaire, man, he just fell off a cliff.
Absolutely.
Remember last year the streak he was on to start the season?
Oh, he was killing it,
dude. I was one of the people who didn't sell high, and I feel like the biggest dummy. I was holding the bag with Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year, as I'm sure a lot of people were.
100%. And even if you remember the year before, he was just touted as like, oh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this is going to be that, like in his next year. So that's great analysis, is going to be this and that. But he really did drop off a cliff.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that now Pacheco's come in. I say this often, it sucks for the running back market that you can pick up a 7th-round rookie and he can just come in and effectively, not want to say win him the Super Bowl, but he played a key part. He had 5.3 yards per carry in the postseason. Big part of their postseason run. So he is one of those people that we would expect, and most breakout candidates list will have Pacheco on there.
Yeah.
But he is a wild card because you don't know that he's going to reproduce.
Yeah, and I'll just say this, because this is a point that keeps coming up this offseason, is that darn pesky running back draft capital conversation. Because you mentioned it, it sucks that you can get a 7th-round pick to go out and win you a Super Bowl, right? You used the term, but you used it admittedly loosely. But at the same time, Adrian, they have nothing invested in him. So if, Clyde does come out a little bit hot, he's the one who was the 1st-round pick. Clyde's the one who might get that extra work. I don't think that's going to happen, but 7th-round rookie running backs get replaced like this. Or 7th-round second-year running backs, 3rd year. The Phillip Lindsays of the world, the 1,000-yard undrafted rookies, the Damian Pierces who have, 4th-round draft capital. It's not the same as 1st-round pick or a big contract. It's at any moment the rug can get pulled out from under a 7th-round running back.
Well, let's hope not, because Pacheco was exciting, and I'm with you on this. Like, I hope that he really delivers. I don't think he's anywhere near the top for a pick just because of his situation. That matters a lot in fantasy. They're going to be through the air whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I think Mike Clay forecasting double-digit touchdowns is what we say in the youth cap. I think that's cap. I don't think he's going to get double-digit touchdowns. I could see him getting between 6 and 8 pretty comfortably.
Yep.
And I like the way he plays. I love his play style. He's aggressive. He's pretty quick. I actually bought low on Pacheco I don't know if you remember, but he was an OTA darling.
I don't remember.
His rookie year, he was an OTA darling, and I was one of the people who bought low. I actually traded Antonio Gibson and I forget who else, somebody who didn't pan out for Pacheco and somebody
Good
else.
move.
Yeah, it worked out really well, man.
That's a
Pacheco helped
really
me
good move.
win a chip. So, but yeah, I think double digit touchdowns is as the youth say cap, but I don't think it's like crazy. I think it could happen, but I'm not. I wouldn't forecast it myself. Adrian, any final
I'm
thoughts
glad
on
we've
Isiah Pacheco before we dive in?
just going to say I'm glad we got our resident youth consultant,
Oh,
Kevin Phillip
bro,
Fox, keeping the language, because for me, like
appreciate that.
I'm still stuck in the world where like fly and dope was like the cap is not a me word. I'm a bit old for that.
Oh, bro, you could still say fly and dope. Fly and dope are forever. They're
Yeah,
timeless.
they're timeless. I
They're
agree.
timeless. Yeah, cliches are cliche for a reason. Sometimes you got to play the hits, you know.
Yeah.
But for me though, yeah, no, I've always kind of been a little bit of a whatchamacallit, like you said, a connection to, you know, I'll
You
always
got the slang down.
I'll bridge
You
the
really
gap.
do.
I'll
Yeah.
always bridge the gap.
Yeah.
But that being said, Adrian, Armand, Francis, Anthony, it's time for our oh my God. Brian McFadden's voice 7 octaves lower. Are you kidding me? I'm panting, and it's not just because of the humidity of Savoie, France, baby. It's hot in here because there are burning questions coming at us left and right. Anthony Weiner, our producer, was going to kick it off, but he is no longer going to kick it off. We have Francis Miller, who is going to be RB number 1 this year. Adrian, gun to your head. You got to get it right or you know, yeah. What do you got?
We're going total points. Total points RB1.
Let's go
Put
total
him
points RB1, half point PPR.
McCaffrey
Wow, you're doing it. You're planting your flag in the
straight into
that's
McCaffrey.
that's chalk. You know that, right?
Look, I know. Look, so I'm just having a quick look. So Jacobs was number 1 total last year. McCaffrey number
Jacobs was
2.
on fire last year.
Yeah, so I don't think Jacobs is going to have a repeat of the season.
I don't think
McCaffrey
so.
does it every year.
Yeah.
So I'm planting my flag in McCaffrey, which is a weird sentence to say.
It is a bit weird, a little bit,
Mm.
but you know, nobody's judging. I love the McCaffrey pick. It is chalk. So, and because you did it, I'll go different. I'm looking at Austin Eckler, bro. I don't
Wow.
care
Okay.
about his age. That pass catching volume, those touchdowns, man. Touchdown regression doesn't exist in Austin Eckler's world, bro. He knows about fantasy. He knows, he pays attention. He's got a podcast with Matt Harmon. Shout out to Reception Perception. Shout out to Matt Harmon. You know, Austin Eckler is very aware of his fantasy stats, and he wants to be RB1. You know it. So
And
I
he hasn't dropped off. Like the other thing is
no,
this sort of offseason in the past we talked about. You know, they wanted him to take a hit. He wanted a new contract. He didn't get it. That's not because his production dropped off. It's just the market for running backs.
yeah,
And
I love Austin Eckler.
absolutely. And Francis, jump in with your answer in the chat, man.
Yeah,
We're keen
please,
to hear who
Francis.
you think your RB1 is.
Please comment your answer. We're gonna stick with the comments. That's what we do, baby. Legit football podcast of the people. Armand Mosin, our boy, Falcons or Commanders. Which offense will produce better for fantasy? Those are Brian McFadden's 2 favorite teams. Anybody who's ever listened to legit football, especially 30 minutes of football. 30 minutes of football, by the way, Adrian, might as well just be called Commanders Talk. Because
Yeah.
and I know Anthony
30
knows
minutes
this
of
because
Commanders.
Anthony, thank you. I'm looking for Anthony produces it, and I haven't been on 30 minutes. I miss it because of the France schedule. That's like 4 a.m. for me, so I haven't been on it. Adrian knows a thing or two about that. 4 a.m. podcasting. But
I do.
you do. But 30 minutes of football. Brian McFadden talks about Sam Howell at least once or twice per episode. Brian McFadden's a big believer in Sam Howell having a potential breakout year. So am I. I'll throw my hat in that ring. But Brian McFadden also loves the Falcons. And Adrian, you're the tiebreaker here. Who do you got?
So who will produce better? I'm going Falcons.
I like Falcons.
Look, they've got some obvious weapons in Bijan Robinson.
Yep.
Drake London. Yeah.
Kyle
and,
Pitts.
yeah. So they've
Ritter
got
is the question mark. No doubt.
very, very quick. But
But
I
so
guess
is
that's
Howell.
why.
Yeah.
I think that's why I put it to the Falcons, because Howell is also a question mark. And probably one of their biggest weapons is Terry McLaurin, who needs it through the air. Whereas Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, they can take it through the ground, and that doesn't matter how bad Desmond Ridder is. In fact, Desmond Ridder being bad helps their case.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting, Adrian, because rarely do team situations so similarly take place parallel to each other, but they both have a handful of career. Ritter has like what 2 or 3 starts. Howell has 1, and
Hmm.
these teams have fantastic supporting casts. The Falcons' defense got a lot better. They're in a weak division. Both of these teams could contend for the playoffs. So, yeah, Legit Football is a pro Falcons podcast. They're one of our off-season darling teams. But this is not a slight to the Commanders. We just happen to love the Falcons. So, Armand, our official answer is Falcons. Francis, Armand, I miss Thomas. I'll just say that much. Which players are considered the top picks or must-haves in fantasy football this season? Adrian, you kick it off.
Well, look, I mean, if you're talking about must-haves, you're always going to be looking. I mean, I guess let me understand the question a little better, and I'll get your opinion. I'm looking at like the top of the draft boards. I'm talking Justin Jefferson's, your Jamar Chases, or are we
Yeah,
looking for like a little bit more down, like the not so
I
obvious?
I like I like the question because he phrased it in 2 different ways. Top picks, pretty obvious, right? Just consult ADP. Go to sleeper.com, look at their ADPs. Obviously Jefferson, Chase, McCaffrey, the names we already said,
Yeah,
Eckler, if you're going by position, I'm talking Josh and Mahomes at QB for fantasy, maybe Hurts right in there.
I was gonna say I'll put Jalen Hurts in there.
Yeah, I think he's in the tier 1 of fantasy quarterbacks. McCaffrey, Eckler, um, Jonathan Taylor's name is coming back up a lot.
There was a headline today though in the Legit newsletter about him being not sure when he's going to be 100% or when his injury is going to be cleared. So question mark still because he really did drop off a cliff last year
Yeah,
because of that injury.
yeah. So that's one. Receivers: Cup, Jefferson, Chase, Diggs, Adams, Hill, the usual suspects.
Yeah,
AJ Brown right in there. Um,
absolutely.
Tight ends: Kelsey. I'm trying to think if there's another obvious. And
Kittle's
Mark
probably
Andrews, Kittle.
yeah. No, Mark
Kittle
Andrews.
Kittle really flashed with Brock Purdy. If Brock Purdy's
Yeah,
healthy, I might buy Kittle if Brock Purdy's healthy to start the season. Um, Anthony's keeping it moving. I love it.
love it.
Um, Thoughts on Garrett Wilson coming from the twin himself. Shout out to Tyler Wayner. Um, I hope Tyler's not doing this on purpose to twist the knife in me because he's in my dynasty league and I traded Garrett Wilson last season at the very end, right before the trade deadline. I traded Garrett Wilson, Dawson Knox, and a second round pick, all for Ramondre Stevenson.
Wowza.
Um, yeah, I Zach Wilson
Regret
scares
it?
me. I got my chip.
Yeah. Okay.
So, does Les Snead regret trading those picks?
Very fair.
Yeah, you
Very
know what I'm
fair.
saying. But Garrett Wilson looks so fun.
Yeah,
Garrett Wilson
and
looks so fun.
obviously, who's throwing him the ball matters. He's gone from Zach Wilson. So he's gone from a rookie of the year campaign with Zach Wilson. Who else was there? Joe Flacco, um,
Yeah.
Mike White, and now he's going to have Aaron Rodgers. So assuming Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, I think Garrett Wilson's going to be a bit of a monster this year.
Yeah,
Um,
he's an absolute stud. He's got top 5 receiver talent. Like
yeah,
Aaron Rodgers,
totally.
Adrian knows is one of the all-time best. Whether or not he still has enough in the tank to be an all-time great, this season or play like an all-time great, he'll always be an all-time great. But whether or not he's going to still play like an all-time great this year is one of the also burning questions that we have. But I don't think there's any doubt that Aaron Rodgers at his worst is better than what Garrett Wilson had last year. And Garrett Wilson was a rookie of the year. Did he win rookie of the year? I think he won it.
Yeah, yeah,
That's impressive. That's great. Thank
correct.
you,
Yeah.
Anthony. Yes, sir. So Armand agrees with us, calling him a stud. Tyler's given us a little ditty here. I traded a ton of capital for Debo Samuel and David Montgomery. Tell me it's going to be worth it. Oof.
I don't know about David
Um,
Montgomery. Samuel, I
I
could see being with it.
I actually feel better about Montgomery. So tell me why you see it for Samuel, and I'll tell you why I see
Well,
it for Montgomery.
yeah, look, as I say it out loud, so Divo
Samuel
Samuel,
scares me.
obviously,
He scares
from a
me.
fantasy perspective, he dropped off last year. Am I right
Yeah.
in thinking that? So it all depends how the offense runs through Shanahan. He likes to change it up and he spreads the ball out. All these things that will affect his, his share of the ball. He's not playing as much in the running back position anymore. So he's obviously last
Right.
year he swapped to much more receiver sets. So
Had some health
yeah,
concerns. He's always kind of, it feels like he's one of those perennially banged up players. Um, was very low in his finish last year. I want to say he was in the 30s, bro. And
I'll look
like
that up
he
while we're
definitely
talking.
costed you a lot more than being the 30th receiver off the board.
34,
Wide
34.
receiver 34, that's low end 3, and that's
Mm,
Deebo Samuel. And so, but let's give Tyler the rosy side of it. He's still Deebo Samuel. He's insanely talented. He's like you said, he's not playing the running back position anymore. Um, so there's hope. There's definitely hope. He's the best predictor of future success is past success, and we've seen Debo be great. So, be hopeful. Uh, the second he has a big game, Tyler, I might try to flip him for like something that's a little bit more consistent nowadays. And Montgomery, if he takes the Jamal Williams role the way a lot of people are projecting, myself included, David Montgomery could be very, very sneaky in fantasy this year. And he's going a lot later in drafts than, Jahmyr Gibbs is going,
mm.
than, other players in a similar like quality of player as him and similar opportunities as him. So I think David Montgomery, people are really scared off of him because of Jahmyr Gibbs, but I wouldn't be if I were you. I would hold on to that one and see what that
But
turns into.
I've got to be honest with Tyler because we're a podcast of the people and we don't
Podcast of
want
the
to lie to
people.
you.
Yes,
And
sir.
and I'll always say that Kevin Phillip Fox he's the light that shines bright in this podcast. He's Mr.
Appreciate that.
Positivity
That's
himself.
very kind of you to say.
And I am the counter to that because there's always got to be balance in this world. And I don't know if it was worth it. I can't tell you it was worth it. There's a chance of that. There's a like that good doom with the gates, and then it's
It's
just a
not that
little open.
small. Do like
It's
do like this. It's like
yeah.
that was a little too small.
Sorry. Let's say here.
Yeah, that's
So
good. I can live with that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a chance that it's worth it.
Oh yeah, I think so too. Anthony, keeping it moving. That's what Anthony does. Are there any sleeper picks or under the radar players that could have a breakout season? I'm really glad that Anthony is asking this question as an official producer submission because I have a similar question. I figured I'd bring it up. I figured
Let's
I'd
do it.
dive in and we can sort of tie the questions together. Um, I'm personally looking for so Adrian, I want your official sleeper picker under the radar who could break out, and then my question, which I'm going to attach to this, a two-part question. I want your post-hype sleeper. I want a player who is being left for dead because of past hype that didn't pan out, who should not be left for dead. Okay,
Okay.
so let's start with our classic sleepers. Do you have one lined up?
All right. I don't have to. I'm looking because I don't want to give a sleeper that delivered last year, but I think so. Brandon Ayuk ranked 15 last year. I think he's going to come in and have. We've talked about him having a much bigger role this season.
Yeah, I think
He's
he's to the
really
moon.
impressing. So I
Yeah,
think he's assuming that they've got Purdy back. It's a big question because Sam Darnold. I know he's traitsy, but I don't know if he's going to be able to get him the ball the same way.
yeah. I don't really
Um,
trust Darnold, to be honest with
yeah,
you.
but I could see Brandon Ayuk taking a
Like
pretty
that.
big leap.
I like that.
What about you?
My sleeper pick, and I will always, always, always bang this drum. Miles Sanders. I love Miles Sanders. He did have an okay season for fantasy last year, but I love his opportunity. I know you hate him. Adrian has an I hate Miles Sanders tattoo. Don't
No.
make him show it on the show. It's NSFW, but he has an I hate Miles Sanders tattoo, and I don't get it, Adrian. I think the talent is there from Philly. He never got the pass catching volume that he should have got. Jalen Hurts vultured every single touchdown. Kenny G, Boston Scott, you name it. He was getting touchdowns vultured left and right. I think Miles Sanders is going to make a lot of people very happy that they drafted him when they did, which I believe he's around five or six ADP right now, which is quite nice for a running back who projects to get his level of volume.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can't agree with you. You know that.
Not gonna show any love, huh? That's okay.
No. Look, it's not that I just don't know if I would call him a sleeper. That's my personal opinion.
Why? Because he had a good year last year.
But he had a good year because of the situation he was in. He's not in that situation anymore.
But okay, so you're saying you don't think he's gonna be a sleeper. You're not saying he doesn't qualify as a sleeper.
Sorry, no. Yes, that 100%.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Like I think he
Okay.
qualifies as a sleeper.
100% qualifies.
Okay,
So,
just
but
making sure. Yeah, he's getting
and if
slept
I'm
on.
wrong, I'll eat all the crow.
I'm
Just serve
looking
it up
forward
to
to
me.
it. I will.
Uh,
I will. I will serve it up to you with some salt, some olive oil, as they do in Francais.
I don't
Um,
doubt.
my friend, post hype sleeper. Do you have one lined up for me, or
So is it most hyped or post hype?
post hype? It's a player who. This is a fun little fantasy term, and maybe they don't say it in Australia, but I'm excited to enlighten you because this is one of my favorite.
Lay it
This is
on
how
me.
you win your league, okay, Adrian? So this episode is called Fantasy Burning Questions, but it might as well be called Kevin teaches everybody how to win their fantasy football leagues.
Love it.
And anybody who wants to ask for my resume, ask Anthony or Tyler. Again, how the kids say sweaty. I'm sweaty at fantasy football. My friend, look for a player who has been overly hyped, who has been never could have reached these expectations because they weren't realistic. They failed to meet them, so everybody's leaving them for dead and everybody hates them. But then, boom, just like that, an opportunity is still very possible for them. I
Okay.
have a name for you if you need.
Yeah. Can you lay one on me? I've got something in mind, but lay one on me.
This man should have never been drafted as a wide receiver 2 last year, but he was. He was drafted insanely high. And his name is Gabriel Davis.
Wow.
The
Okay.
Bills did absolutely nothing to bolster the wide receiver position. They did bring in Dalton Kincaid, but he profiles more as a big slot. So Gabe Davis theoretically should still be on the field in 12 personnel in 2 receiver sets.
Mhm.
And he's not being drafted at an unrealistic, unreasonable place this year. He's being drafted at a place where his production last year would have been welcomed. He was, not as abysmal as he seemed. He just people thought he was going to be something he wasn't, and something he couldn't be. I'm guilty of that.
Yep.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's a goodie. I've had a couple of names. I was having to think while you were talking, so I've had a name come to mind.
Nice.
But I think that's a good call. And I think he could be exactly what you're saying he's going to be.
Yeah.
My name for this, or who I would put in this role, has Cortland Sutton.
Oh,
I
that's a
think
great. That totally qualifies as a post type sleeper. You nailed it.
Yeah. So, Kevin, you're obviously a fantastic teacher, but I think Cortland Sutton, he's had hype around him. Like we've been sort of believing Cortland Sutton, and then he never delivers.
Yeah.
If he's going to do it, it's got to be this year. I think the fact that they kept him in the building matters. I think Sean Payton sees something in him because he was also on the trade block. There was a lot of discussion of him being sent out the door. So I think he's going to come in, and I think Russell Wilson is going to be better, and I think he's going to get the ball a lot more, and he's really going to. I mean, just looking at rankings very quickly, he ranked 45 last year, and I think he's going to do significantly better than that.
Yeah, dude, I love that pick. You nailed it. And so we answered Anthony's questions. Adrian, before we get to our questions, because we do have questions lined up, we're just going to keep this torrid pace, okay? Adrian and I, we love
Rapid
the
fire.
ADD style podcast. It's a very, very fun way to do it. Tyler mentioned Michael Pittman Jr. I'm guessing that's a post hype sleeper, and I love it. You nailed it. Start, bench, trade. We'll do this one quickly. Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, Ramondre Stevenson. I'm going to start Miles Sanders. I'm going to trade Ramondre, and I'm sorry, but until I know anything about Javonte's health for week 1, I'm going to bench him.
All right. I'm going to go. I'm going to start Ramondre. I'm going to stick with your bench. And you know who I'm sending it. Oh, I feel bad actually because I don't hate Miles Sanders that much. Like now, I kind of feel like I've got to commit to it, but
you do kind of have to commit to it. It's a bit.
Yeah,
you gotta dive in.
Is that the door, Miles Sanders?
But also, Adrian, you have to keep in mind trade value matters, right? I mean, is he going to command any sort of he's undervalued? People don't know what they have in him.
I think though, but he got a lot of love last year, but I do think it was the situation he was in. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna start Stevenson. I'm going to bench Javonte Williams, and I'm going to send Miles Sanders out the door.
Start Sanders, bench Javonte, and I love Ramondre, but I'm gonna go trade him for Garrett Wilson, like the guy in my freaking dynasty league did. Am I right? Let's go. Let's keep it moving. Tyler shouting out Amon-Ra St. Brown not getting the love he deserves. I agree.
Totally agree.
And thank you for the music, Anthony, because he deserves it. He deserves a party. He was a fantasy MVP contender last year because of where he was drafted and where he finished. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a dog, and he's one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. He's absolutely a game-changing player, and he fits that offense perfectly. I watched a ton of Lions football last year, and that man got separation, bro. That dude was
Yeah.
alone on routes.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tyler. Like Amara doesn't get like no, I'm not gonna say he's in the top 5, but he doesn't get talked about enough in that sort of top 10 conversation. And he's
Yeah.
up there. And if Jared Goff doesn't regress him, which it may happen, sorry, Anth, it may happen, but for some reason I'm kind of seeing like they're gonna have another good year, and Amon Ra is gonna be eaten.
Yeah, dude, I absolutely love it, man. Great call, Adrian, as always. I think it might be time for us to get into our official submissions for our burning questions, Adrian. I got one of mine out of the way with the post type sleeper. Why don't you kick us off with one of your fantasy burning questions?
All right. Okay. Now I did this a little differently. No, not necessarily, but this one's a player specific one.
Sure.
And my fantasy question here is: will Deshaun Watson flatline, or will he improve back to where he
I
was?
am so glad that you said that because that's literally one of mine, bro.
Oh,
Um,
amazing!
if
Lockstep.
anybody can, I have great lighting right now. It's backlighting, so you can't see like a ton of my face like usually. I don't have the ring light, but I have bags under my eyes because I was up until 4 in the morning texting and arguing with my buddy Zach Miller from Coffee Shop Sports and Reception Perception because this man was trying to tell me, Adrian, that Deshaun Watson's season last year was not a sign of things to come, and it was the process of him shaking off rust. I
It
don't
could be
agree.
though. It
I
could be
don't
though.
agree. It could be. Sure, it could be. And you know what? I could be Brad Pitt. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
You
agree
feel
with
me?
that.
Like, okay, that was a bad example. That was a bad example.
That's an excellent example,
I
but
could be
I
the
hear
king
you.
of Australia. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that like Watson should be left for dead. I'm not saying he's going to be atrocious, but he was formerly, and this is a point that Zach wouldn't let me forget, a top 5 QB in all of his seasons,
Hmm.
and that's impressive. But he was dog water last year. He was bad. Capital.
Yeah, so I think, and oh no, wait, you're back. Froze for a sec.
Oh,
You're right. He was terrible last year, but he came in halfway through a season after missing a year and a half into a brand new offense. Like the 2020, so you look at his 2020 season in a 4-12 team. All right, 4,800 yards, 33 TDs, 7 ints, 370 fantasy points. Like he was 20 points shy of Josh Allen. You know, he was the same as 2022 Burrow. He was what you want in a fantasy QB. He needs to get back to 90% of that. And if he does, the weapons around him, you know, even his offensive line is a top 5 offensive line unit. That matters for Deshaun Watson of what his production is going to be like in fantasy. So the thing with this is that's the question. The burning question is he actually still good?
That's crazy, Adrian. Did you talk to Zach?
Yeah,
Did you talk?
Was he spent
The same
was this
exact
if
argument.
sounds like a smart guy. I haven't met Zach, but he
Oh,
sounds like a
very smart
brilliant
guy.
mind.
You'll love him. You'll love him. But I was so frustrated because I my eyes told me that he sucked, and like
Hmm.
the numbers tell me that he sucked.
And that's
And
true.
as as I said, anything could happen. It's not crazy to think that this man could get back to his former, self. Best predictor of future success is past success. Deshaun was a top 5 QB. How much of this argument is it's not being ruined by I have a bad Wi-Fi signal. Is this argument coming in clear?
It's we missed a tiny little bit, but for the most part, I
Okay.
caught everything you said, and keen to hear anyone in the chat what your thoughts are if you think that Deshaun Watson's going up or down, buying or selling.
Yeah, I need more comment because I feel like, the question was, and Adrian, this is a quick one. We'll wrap this Deshaun Watson conversation up because we have a lot to get to. Dynasty League right now, CJ Stroud, Deshaun Watson, who do you want?
Oh, that's such a hard question.
That's what brought this whole debate up because I said Stroud 10 times out of 10. And that's how I feel. I'm a
Uh,
Texans believer. He's
yeah,
younger.
you are. Um, I'm gonna go Watson,
Oh,
and I don't want.
respect. Yeah.
I don't want to though. Like for what is like for what it's worth. I've said this a couple of times. Wish casting. I don't want him to succeed. I'm
Yeah.
not happy with everything that
Yeah.
happened. I'm not happy with the way he handled it. But from purely production perspective, CJ Stroud is just as unproven
Yeah.
as whether Deshaun Watson's good or not.
I think it's an equal percentage chance that CJ Stroud from now till the end of his career does more than Deshaun Watson from now till the end of his career based on age, ceiling, draft capital, potential, all that, So
Yeah.
great conversation. I'm really glad that got brought up organically because it's been on my mind, bro. Like this, I'm telling you, I stayed up until 4 a.m. arguing about this. I feel like a crazy person. I really should just go to bed, but he's talking crazy. So,
I
but
shouldn't.
apparently he's not. Apparently he's not talking crazy. Apparently he's got some salient points. So I'll keep listening. Adrian,
No one on
how's my
me.
connection? Do I have a chance to ask a question?
You good? Yeah,
My,
yeah.
my most burning question for fantasy football this year is: are we due for this market correction of the wide receivers now being the dominant position in fantasy, or is this just a response to a bad year from running back production last year?
I think I think the wide receiver taking that position is it's a consequence of the way the NFL is going because
Okay.
as we sort of the more we move into, and especially with these quarterbacks coming out, like if you think back, go back 10 years even, the top five quarterbacks were vastly like just there was like maybe top 5 to 7 quarterbacks in a league. Whereas now it's like top 10, top 12, you can get by with a top 14 quarterback and still do well. So
Yeah.
the game is going through the air a lot more than it used to.
Yeah.
That also that lends itself to the running back discussion about what they're worth in the market. So I to answer your question directly, I don't think we're due for a regression. I think that it's going to continue on this trend because I think the ball is going to be gone through the air more than it's going to be gone on the ground, irrespective of some of the elite running back talent.
Okay. I love the answer, and I'm glad you said it with your chest, and I think it makes a lot of logical sense. But are you familiar with the pendulum? You've probably been playing fantasy for a long time. You've mentioned that before, right?
No, I know. Look, I mean, I've played fantasy, but I'm gonna be honest with you, Kevin. You're the fantasy guru on this show. I do the work. I'll research it, but I'm not the pro.
I'm flattered to hear you say that. I think Brian McFadden would take exception to it. I like that nickname for myself, but I would
When
say
that's right here.
I would say I'm more of a savant than a guru.
Okay.
But but regardless, look, every single year, bro, the ADP game, the market correction happens when you draft running backs too high, you get burned. Most of the top 12 picks that are running backs burn you. You
Mhm.
pick a receiver in the first round next year. The same thing. It's a tale as old as time, and I'm curious if that's going to continue to be the case, and that pendulum is forever swinging, or if we are officially in an era of wide receiver is king. And like you said, it with running back value in the league and running back value with contracts, are they just less important now
What's
in
your view?
fantasy?
What's your guess?
My guess is until the trend stops, a trend is a trend. And I think next year we'll see those running backs right back where we saw them the year prior. That's my
Well,
guess.
yeah, history is instructive, right? So if this is the way
Yeah.
it's been with the back and forth, well, then you can expect that that's probably more likely to be the case.
Yeah. Let's go, man. Thomas is here. Thomas, I've actually mentioned your name about 17 times, how sad I was that you weren't here. So
Yeah.
welcome.
We're 48 minutes in. I think the first 28 minutes was just sobbing, like real
Yeah, absolutely.
chesty
Yeah, yeah. It
sobbing.
was
Yeah.
yeah. So but welcome, homie. Please drop your fantasy burning questions. We're going ham right now. Adrian, why don't you hit us with another burning question?
Alrighty. What's a good one? All right. How about this one? Talking about the Ravens, you know how I feel their wide receiver room is a bit rough. So, who do you see as Ravens wide receiver one?
Are you talking for strictly fantasy?
Fantasy points only.
Does Mark Andrews
Currently,
count?
currently the highest ADP is Flowers. Mark Andrews always is number one, but take him out
Yeah,
of it.
yeah. Take him out of it. I like Zay Flowers the best for the upside, for the unknown. Um, I really like Zay Flowers.
Yeah. See, so
How about you?
that's it. Well, yeah, probably Zay Flowers to be honest. And I think that's the reason I asked this question because when I think about rookies that I would want to be drafting in the wide receiver position, JSN comes to mind, Jordan Addison comes to mind. But if Zay Flowers were to slot into that one position, he's probably not being spoken about enough. He's probably been slept on a little bit. And I'm with you. I think, look, I mean, he's got an ADP. I can't. I had it written down and now I've lost it. But I think Zay Flowers is probably going to be wide receiver one there, and
Yeah,
that matters.
that's my
Yeah, that's probably not. That wasn't as burning. That wasn't as far as
No,
my previous
I
ones.
love it. No, because I mean it's important to talk about because Rashad Bateman's not he didn't go away. OBJ is, a past all-time great. So
Don't
I
get
know
me
you hate
started.
his guts. Again, right next to your I hate Miles
That's
Sanders
hate.
tattoo. You have
That
an I
one's
hate
hate.
OBJ tattoo. Really quick, at being the podcast for the people, a question comes up. You know what we do. Thomas Bray, the GOAT graphic designer, how high are you on Daniel Jones? For me, at his current ADP, high. If you can get Daniel Jones in the middle to later rounds, I think that's a really solid quarterback to have due to his rushing upside.
Yeah.
And I think the Giants did a lot to improve their weapons this offseason.
Ranked 9th last year. Agree with you completely. If you can get him, based on his ADP, 100%. Low on him as a player. Miss me. If this wasn't a fantasy podcast, miss me with Daniel Jones talk.
That's
But
so funny.
as a fantasy episode, yeah, high on him as well.
Yeah, so I did just discover a nugget I had on my last point. Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Taysom Hill, they're all going in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of crazy. Travis Kelce's going in the first round, bro. Like the market correction against running backs is like this might be the biggest like zigging when others are zagging. Like zero RB is like the normal now. You familiar with zero RB, Adrian?
Lay it on me. Give me a little bit.
Zero RB is this former strategy that people used to use when running backs were king, and I was the most guilty of them all. Who I would leave my drafts with like 8 running backs, and I would take them with my first 3 picks because I knew how much they'd get hurt, so I needed insurance. Zero RB zigged when people zagged, which was you didn't take your first running back until like the 8th or 9th round, knowing theoretically that there would be lottery tickets available in those rounds, and there would be backup running backs who would become more valuable as time went on because starters would get hurt.
Yep.
So it was like increasing the likelihood of a lottery ticket hitting, basically. And that way you have the best receivers, the best tight ends, the best running backs on your team, which is the positions where, you had a positional advantage.
Yeah.
But zero RB is basically the norm now. You can't really get away with zero RB anymore because you're not zigging when others are zagging. You're just steering into the zig.
Yeah, zigging further.
Yeah, literally. So interesting philosophical conversation, but I'm here to tell you that in addition to zero RB no longer being a strategy because it's just normal, Adrian, the late round quarterback to me is dead. I am all about reaching for one of those dogs, bro. I am all about reaching for a Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, maybe Joe Burrow, maybe I know I throw my shade, but maybe Justin Herbert. Like go get yourself a stallion in the top, 4 or 5 rounds and lock that position up.
Yeah, I know that maybe used to be the case. I'm with you on this. I mean, look, I'm not like I said, fantasy. I play, and you're the savant here. But I'm always picking QBs high because I want that piece. I want that piece that's always going to deliver the goods.
Good for you. Good for you for admitting that. And I wasn't doing that. I mentioned my affinity for drafting running backs. I just started, and I must admit it's a lot of it has to do with how good Josh Allen is, and just this is a fantasy tip for people who love football. Draft players that you love, because then you get to watch them and root for them to be good for you. It's a little bit of a. It might not be the most strategically sound advice, but it is damn fun to have a player.
Can I add to that?
Yeah,
let me add to that point. And I want to add to that point to say, fantasy is meant to be enjoyed, right? So draft, as you said, draft for what you want to happen. Sometimes kind of wish cast through your drafting because it just makes it all the sweeter when it happens. And to me, fantasy is fun. I know some people will take it more seriously than actual football. Football's always going to be king for me, but draft for what you want to happen because when it does, it's just so much sweeter. Like it sucks sometimes when you draft against what you want and then it happens and it's sort of a loss no matter what. So I think draft for fun.
Yeah,
I think you nailed that. Advice.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely love it. Adrian, hit us with your next burning question. We got 5 minutes till the hour mark, so I think we're good to, like I said, keep rapid firing, keep sending off our shots. Thomas, please keep commenting. Armand, Tyler. Oh, here we go. Anthony, thank you.
This is your question. This is your question.
We'll both answer it though, Adrian. Look, hey, I'm guiding you into the world of fantasy savantness. You know, a journey of 1,000 steps begins with one. Okay, what strategies can be employed to win a fantasy football league? Draft an early quarterback. I know it's risky, and I know it undercuts value at other positions, but the advantage that it's been in recent years, especially with the elite, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Jalen Hurts, has been worth it in recent seasons. Zig when people are zagging. So maybe now with the market being so low on running backs, maybe go 0 wide receiver, right? Maybe take those wide receiver flyers later because there are more great wide receivers in fantasy than there are great running backs. And be ready to make moves all year. My favorite fantasy football podcast, the Fantasy Footballers, say you don't win your league at the draft. You only set the foundation that you use to win your league. So be constantly making moves. I lead the every single league I'm in. I lead the league in waiver wire transactions every single year because I'm tireless when it comes to improving my team. Adrian, take the floor.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump on the back of your be involved in trades, because you can't win the league without doing that. And I'm gonna say my other thing for this is don't be afraid to sort of take a shot on someone where you see a high ceiling. A couple examples come to mind in this. So if I think about CeeDee Lamb, ranked 6 last year, was about 15 the year before. To be fair, even Jefferson was 4 last year and first this year. So just when you see someone with a high ceiling, don't be afraid to take a shot.
Love that. And Anthony, I love that question. If you have a producer pick for the same thing, please comment it. Adrian, you got any more questions, bro?
I'll throw one more out that's a bit of a burning one for me. When we're talking about fantasy and we're talking about rookie QBs and we're talking specifically about dual threat QBs, and I'm looking at Anthony Richardson, my question to you is this, will he be a fantasy star? Before you answer, I went back at a couple of previous and looking at dual threat QBs and looking at where they ranked. Now, you've got some that killed it in their rookie year. Cam Newton ranked 4th, Robert Griffin 3rd, ranked 5th. Then you've got some Jalen Hurts ranked 9th in his first full starting year. But then you've got like Josh Allen 21st, Justin Fields 31st. Like it can be hit and miss. And so I'm questioning whether you think Richardson's going to be a star.
I'm glad you bring that up because of the ones that you mentioned, I don't remember if Fields missed any time, but he was kind of atrocious. Josh missed about 7 games with the torn UCL. So I think that affected his 21st. When he came back from the UCL, he lit the world on fire. But things didn't click for him until he came back from that injury. So that's a real point. I'm going to go with pushing my chips in the center of the table when it comes to Anthony Richardson. He's going late, and he can be a league winner. That's a term, Adrian, I'm sure you know. Players you get late who end up being elite at their positions. Anthony Richardson could be a league winner in fantasy football. So great question, and yeah, I'm in. You're in as well?
I'm in.
Oh, Thomas, you poor guy. The one where I hope it was the game where he scored the 3 touchdowns and won everybody their fantasy championships right here. Is Mike Evans a wide receiver 1 this year? Thomas Bray wants to know. No. Wide receiver 1 is too high. He could be a 2, be a low end 2. Death, taxes, Mike Tomlin winning more games than he loses, and Mike Evans going for 1,000 yards. I mean, that's life in the NFL.
He spoke recently about wanting to beat Jerry Rice's record, which is 11 straight seasons. So, and that's his kind of goal. He's at 9 so far. So,
he can do it. I think he's gonna smell Canton too, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
50 bomb, won him his championship, and broke his heart in the process. Well, I'm sure you dried your tears with your money. I have a couple more. I wrote more than 5 because this is my favorite thing to talk about. So I'm just gonna we're gonna rapid fire these. We're very close to the end of the podcast, but new faces in new places, occupying new spaces. Will it affect their fantasy football homeostasis? Okay, I'm looking at. Did that come through clean, or did that get broken up by bad Wi-Fi?
Yeah, mostly. I heard of most of the rhyming, but that was. Can you give it to us one more time?
New faces in new places, occupying new spaces. Will it affect fantasy homeostasis. I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers. I'm talking about the studs who switch teams, the studs
Yeah.
who are they going to deliver, Adrian?
Okay, so I'll look at a couple. Aaron Rodgers, I think yes. I think Aaron Rodgers you'll see a
Derek Carr.
fantasy improvement. Derek Carr, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say no. I don't think he's gonna drop off, but I think he's gonna stay the same.
Okay, there you go. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Any love for those guys?
Yeah, look, Bryce Young, I think absolutely. CJ Stroud is less of a known quantity. I think, look, Bryce Young, look, they're both in great. I'm back and forthing here as we speak. Let's say you know that we don't prep for some of this stuff. I think this is all off the cuff. So, look, Bryce Young, I think, is obviously a better talent. He went number one, but I think he's in a worse situation. Not to say the Texans are a lock, but I think they're in a better space right now. The
Yeah,
Panthers have a much higher upside eventually. Like I think
agreed.
So for Thomas, like you've got years to come of great football, I think. But I think for this particular year, I don't see it even being world beaters in the fantasy world. If I'm putting my chips to anyone, it's Anthony Richardson from the UQBs.
Love that.
Miles Sanders, you know how I feel. Not going to say that.
He's gonna snap. I think he's gonna snap.
Yeah.
How about Rashad
Yeah?
Penny?
Ooh, okay. Up.
Okay, you
Improvement.
like Rashad Penny. Okay, I have two
Yeah.
more, Adrian, and then if
Fine.
Thomas, Anthony, Armand, Tyler, anybody has any more, we can keep going. Inevitably, every year, the top 12 in ADP has a handful of letdowns. Who are they this year?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Can I look at ADP rankings?
Yeah, please. I know it's Jefferson, Chase, McCaffrey. Last year, Jonathan Taylor, your team on fire if you drafted him. He was the 101 consensus.
Okay, currently ADP rankings, Jonathan Taylor's still in there. There's still a chance he could let down. Saquon's
the one for me. I think Saquon, I don't think he will, but I think he's the highest likelihood with
I also think there's a chance CeeDee Lamb.
Is CeeDee Lamb going in the top 12?
He's number 12.
Oh my goodness. I think that's rich.
Yeah, I think it's recency bias. I also think that
I like him a lot.
Cooks is going to take same, but I think Brandon Cooks is going to take some of his meals. I think he might be a disappointment if you take him in top 12.
Yeah, I love that. I have one last question, and then we can wrap this show up. Adrian, the new guard of the NFL is taking over fantasy football. You're looking at all your best quarterbacks are under the age of 30 now in fantasy. These stud young receivers, stud young running backs. But there is that old guard, right? There is that that old tier of stud players. You're looking at Aaron Rodgers. You're looking at Devontae Adams. You're looking at, I hate to say it, but Stephon Diggs. Players like that who are smelling 30, some over 30.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the year we see any of the old guard sail off into the sunset from a fantasy perspective? Mike Evans, Travis Kelce, any of these older guys, the year we see any of them fall off the cliff?
All right, so one that is particularly comes to mind. It's a bit of an odd case, but Geno Smith was like top 5 fantasy QB. I don't think he's going to get there again. I think Aaron Rodgers. Sorry.
Who was the first name you said? I'm sorry.
I said that's okay. Yeah, European Wi-Fi, we get it. I said Geno Smith was top 5 fantasy QB. I don't think he's getting anywhere near there.
I can respect that. Yeah, that's
yeah,
fair.
but that's an odd situation. I wouldn't say he's an old guy, but he's been consistently. Yeah,
right.
Correct. Jared Goff. Sorry, I think he could drop off a little bit. He was top 10.
Ooh, you're gonna get booed.
No, but it's not that because I do like Goff. It's just he was top 10. I don't know if he's gonna bring that production again.
Yeah, his stats were bonkers last year. I took the under on some of our over under episode the other day for Goff, and Anthony was mad at me.
Other than that, I mean, look, you know who actually, this is one that I'm not super high on because I think he can still be good. No, sorry, I don't think he is good. Cooper Kupp is still a great receiver, but if the Rams offense don't improve from what they were last year, Cooper Kupp, if you had him the year before, he was a league winner. But last year. He dropped off. He still delivered goods. So that's what I'm saying. He's still good. I just think that we could see that regress a little bit further. I don't really know what the Rams are.
Oh, here we go. We're rapid fire. What are some common mistakes to avoid in fantasy football? Giving up too soon on a player who just has a rough start or has a bad stretch because of facing elite defenses. Hold your horses, Adrian.
And also, so in some, we've talked about this. Sometimes recency bias can cloud your judgment.
Yes.
Like look to history sometimes, and look for trends. Sometimes you have one breakout year and you think, oh, let's buy, and then they drop off. So
that's a great call. This is so slow for rapid fire. I'm just kidding. Oh, was that just? Oh, I thought like we were going to get multiple questions. He just wanted us to answer that question. I love it. Anyways, Adrian, I feel like we covered the bases pretty effectively. I mean, this was such a blast to do, man. How are you feeling?
This was really fun. I think I'm just going to shout out to the people in the chat, because when we started the show, we wanted some fire in the chat, and you guys brought it, as you always do.
Oh my goodness, better late than never.
Man.
Yeah, I absolutely love you guys. Make sure you're subscribed to the Legit Football NFL podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. The daily newsletter, make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. We are bringing you 3 shows a week. It's going to be 5 soon. Hopefully Brian McFadden is back for the season. Training camp is right around the corner. Thomas showing some love in the chat with that fuego. That's what he brought today, as he always does. Adrian, next time you see me, like I said, I'm going to be in a nicely lit studio with a little ring light and a little cold brew in my hand with a purple fluorescent Kid Lavender sign, bringing the energy to the world.
That's the Kevin Phillip Fox we know and love.
Absolutely.
I haven't mentioned this on this show, which has got to be a new record for me, because it's been an hour and 7 minutes. But today's actually my spawn. It's his due date today. So if he has not here yet,
Dude.
Just like his papa, he likes to be fashionably late. So I hope the next time you see me is next week.
Dude, yeah.
I don't know. I might need a breather at that point.
I was gonna say, and if I don't see you, bro, like, best of luck to you, and like I always say, love, light, and prayers to you and yours. And I can't wait to meet the guy, man, for real.
Appreciate you.
All right, Armand, Thomas, Anthony, Adrian Revito from Down Under, Kevin, Philip Fox from Francais. This has been another episode of Legit Football, and we are out.